It's been a long time since Pat and I have sat down together to do a Pat chat. And so I have no idea, as usual, what we're talking about. So why don't you just start this off?
Okay, I feel like a lot of us wellness warriors struggling is because of this autopilot concept. You're working, you're at home, you're on a break, you're not really hungry, but you're close to the kitchen. So you decide, oh, I'm gonna go like to get something to eat. But like you're fighting with yourself, like like I shouldn't do that. I'm not really hungry. Next thing you know, you're like both hands in the peanuts jar, or like you're having cashews, or you're having even worse, a cookie. Like if you have cookies in your home.
Okay.
So you know, like the past maybe few years now, since like I've started keto, I know I've been off the wagon, and it's like the good thing about like doing keto for a few years is that I have a better idea what I can eat, but the thing is, like, since I'm not tracking, I eat too much of something, or I have those autopilot reflexes that, oh, okay, I'm on a break. I'm like, next thing I know, I have a little container of cashews, but like after the first one, I have a second one. So, like, I'm eating the keto friendly foods, but probably in like too much of a quantity, if you will. So I wanted to explore with you like this concept of autopilot, like what is it about? Like why is it there? Like
We very naturally do our habits. To feel good, we do things that are pleasing to us, and it's very pleasing to know the outcome of something. So because I know, oh, eating cashews gives me this feeling, I do it and I get the feeling, and that just reinforces the same thing over and over and over. Right? So it's easy to do what we know the outcome of, even when it's bad. So we'll go for this one. How many parents will see their kids do the wrong thing because they get attention for it? What they want is attention. And so they do the wrong thing and they get that negative attention, but attention is still attention. I know mom is going to pay attention to me if I do this, even if she's screaming. Right? So we don't always do things because the outcome is good. It just has to be the outcome we're looking for. Right? And if in the moment the outcome I'm looking for is this tastes delicious, even though I know that's bad for my health, it still tastes delicious, so I do it.
there was that course I was following a while back, and I did find the imagery like interesting, and it was like they were talking about our minds like divided in two parts, like of course we have our rational mind, our emotional mind, and the image they were giving is that like the emotional side of us being a big elephant, like a little bit like clumsy and not very agile, but driven by our rational mind, which is this tiny driver on top of the elephant.
Ooh, they had that
And
backwards.
yeah, but that's the thing. Like so the idea was that like the elephant being so big, it's actually what's our emotions like are mainly controlling us, but they need to be in a frame like of operation given by the rational mind. And whenever we're on autopilot doing stuff, like there's like a bad balance or a lack of balance that like there is in that thing. So the elephant doing whatever it wants to do, like yeah, it's not doing the all the time the right stuff.
Why
Yeah.
I say they have it backwards is because that's not how it works, in the sense that your feelings don't make you do anything. They tell you how you're feeling about it.
Okay.
So what happens is that you have a feeling, and then your rational mind is what decides how are we addressing this. So it actually
Okay.
is your rational mind that's directing you,
Okay.
is directing you based on how you feel. And if I don't realize that, for example, me feeling sad means my rational mind is going to try to make me feel better. And if my rational mind doesn't have something positive and healthy to focus on to make me feel better, we go back to that idea of doing my habits.
Okay.
It's going to do whatever I've ever done before that made me feel better. But it's not because I'm sad. So my emotions just say what the problem is. But my rational, so I need to know that when I feel sad, the action that I should take isn't simply self-soothing. So it's my rational mind also needs to know that the action I'm supposed to be taking is solve the problem. Why am I feeling sad? And that's the part we often skip over. We feel sad, we do something to feel better, which is basically saying, shut up, sadness. But sadness is there to tell us that there's a problem in our world.
Okay, yeah. So I remember too that like so basically what you're saying, you cannot like force or what white knuckle. I don't know if it's the right expression, but your emotions with your rational, because that's the thing they were showing in that course too, is that you cannot like just tap on your emotions, set them aside, and just be rational, because you're not gonna do well in that scenario either.
Well, because I'm being rational without knowing what I'm trying to fix.
Okay.
My emotions tell me what the problem is. So let's put it to like, look at it a different way. So if I was eating strictly based on what food is for, fuel my body and build my body, then I would only ever eat meals. But yet we know that people eat snacks.
Of course.
That's not about fueling your body and feeding your, like, that's about fun. Right? Because if you were trying to fuel yourself and get building blocks, you would eat a meal every time. So even in that, this idea that right there, I'm taking a decision to snack. Now, why am I doing that? So what am I trying to solve? And we're making a mistake because we think we're trying to solve hunger. But if I eat a snack, right, that's not solving the problem that my hungry body has. So what I'm actually solving in that story is it's not supper time. The clock ruling my meals. And so I need to wait. The world telling me I can't eat supper at this time. Right? So I'm actually not trying to, if I'm actually hungry, I should be eating a meal. But I'm not answering my question, the real question, which is my body's asking for food. I'm answering the world's question of, but it's not 6 o'clock yet, which we tell our kids how often. It's not 6 o'clock yet. Or like you need to learn to wait, which I'm trying to tell my body when it's hungry. Both of those are not actually addressing what my body's giving me as a signal, which is hunger signal.
Not like the only like I do agree with you, but the only like the thing that the other example that come to mind is you're sad, so you're getting some ice cream. So in fact, because to me like it sounds like it's your emotion that actually sets your rational apart, or the elephant that sets like your driver apart. By you feel an emotion, you want to feel good, like counteracting.
But who's deciding that? It's your rational mind that's still saying, I want to feel good, I'm going to eat ice cream. And it's because your rational mind isn't solving the question, I'm sad, why?
Okay.
And does ice cream solve my sadness? And that's not, and what I'm trying to, in my position of this is, where did we get that from? Ice cream equals feel better. Society. Okay. Because our body never told us that. Our body, when it is right in that moment, our body is sad. It's looking for us to solve, the next door neighbor told me I'm an idiot. That's what I'm sad about, right?
Yeah.
But instead of coming inside and dealing with that, maybe venting to you, Pat, you can't imagine what just happened the next door, right? And then you're going to be like, well, he's a jerk, Violet. And then I'm going to feel better because you see with me that, last week he told me blah, 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 blah. And then I end up feeling better. And I don't eat ice cream. But instead I come inside and I'm all upset and I go to the fridge and self-soothe with food. But that's not because my emotions were wrong. I'm sad. It's because my solution was wrong. I didn't solve the actual problem.
But there's not always like following negative emotions too. Like it could be, for example, like I'm at work, I did like 2 hours of I had an amazing 2 hours on my project, and I'm taking a break and I'm going to the fridge
to celebrate with food.
So celebrations, not,
it's still emotional.
So, yeah, I know, but there's two parts. There's like self-soothing, which is and celebrating. But celebrating does it come like from our upbringing, the way we were raised, like so.
This is, again, what's the message? When you do good, you get a treat.
A treat. Okay, so it's a treat, basically.
Right? Okay. When you feel bad, you get a pick me up, yummy something.
Okay.
But it's still coming back to this idea that how do I take care of my feelings with food? And not just any food, sweet foods. Fun foods. It could be fun foods and not only sweet, because a lot of us love potato chips. A lot of us love, I used to love pizza. Oh my goodness. Right? But I also like chocolate. So it's like, everybody has their thing that they're going to be looking for. And I feel like I like what they did because they separated it to the emotions and the the decision maker, whatever you want to call that part.
Yeah.
I think the mistake they're making is that they think that the decision maker decides what's like the action maker, not even decision maker. The action maker decides what we're going to do. No, your feelings is what decides what needs to be solved, right? So, because I'll put this out there to you to think about. If the neighbor telling me that I'm an idiot made me feel sad, that's different. That's a different conversation that you and I are going to have than if the neighbor made me feel inferior. That's a different kind of conversation that we're going to have versus if the neighbor saying that to me made me think he's the jackass, because then I'm going to be laughing when I come in and tell you, you won't believe what he just, and that's a completely different conversation we're having. So the same action can bring different feelings. And then if there's different feelings, there's different solutions that are going to happen. And each of those, so in each case, my answer was talk to you about it because I would solve that way because I know that's the solution.
Okay.
But I equally could have come inside and been self-soothing myself with something to eat or video gaming or insert your vice there.
Yeah. But okay. So the question I have then is like, where does that, in the course of somebody's life, where this switch from the logical things to do to a vice, like where does that come? Like, where does that come from? Like, what could trigger that? Like, maybe if we understand it, we can fix it better.
We're getting deep now.
Okay.
Okay. That comes from upbringing.
Okay.
And it comes from the mistake that lots of people make when they talk to their kids, but also we make it when we talk to each other, which is trying to tell me what bothers me shouldn't bother me.
Okay.
So, for example, when a little kid is crying because they don't know how to do something and they are told you shouldn't be crying for that. Well, what are they supposed to do? They're upset because they don't know how to do something. And we're telling them they're wrong. And so what it teaches us is to not talk about what we don't know how to do. But if I'm not talking about it and I'm not, because a kid starts with expressing about it before they talk about it. Just want to point out why this is so harmful. A kid emotes. And then the parent comes up and says, hey, dude, what's going on? And then the kid is going to explain why they're crying. And then instead of the parent saying, oh, this is how you fix it, they say you shouldn't be crying for that.
Oh, okay.
And now you've just taught this kid, stop complaining, suck it up, and always look okay.
Okay.
And so what do you end up doing in life is you stop complaining, you try to suck it up, and you try to always look okay. But you've got emotions in there. They didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Right? Because guess what? And this is the truth, and it will always be the truth. Whatever bothers you. It doesn't matter how big it is. Right? If I drop my coffee and that makes me upset, because I love coffee, I'm allowed to be upset about that.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me I can't be upset about that because that's how I feel. And that's where this comes from. It stems from that. And we do it to our kids. We do it to each other. We do it to our employees. Right? We're constantly telling people how they should feel and what they should do about it.
So at some point in the course of our teen adult life, those
younger than that,
but I mean those emotions that we learn to push back in, we discovered a way to self-soothe with something that made us feel good, and we just fed that new behavior that's not the right behavior, but like we fed that behavior like further and further and like to a point where we kind of lose control basically.
Yeah, so what usually happens is that little kids, because like kids don't learn something for a shot. So like they'll do something, they'll get that message, but then and eventually they pull it back until they end up self-soothing, as you said, with these things. And I think that for a lot of parents, you start to see the behavior sometimes, depending on what the kid is doing. If they're gaming all the time, you see it. Overeating sweets, like we see that. And I think now it comes down to what the parent thinks about it. Right? If the parent allows that behavior to just keep happening because, it's normal for kids to eat like that, or it's normal for kids to be on their video games all the time, to the point where their friend upsets them, they come inside, they're on their game. Go play with Timmy. Oh, I don't want to. He's not nice. Go play with Michelle. She's not like, okay, every one of the people you know is not nice, but we don't realize that they're hiding from the problem. I don't know how to get them to cooperate with me because my feelings always get shut down. And so I just avoid.
Okay.
And eventually they avoid with multiple different things. We don't have one vice, by the way. Like we usually have more than one. And how do we know that? It's like sometimes you'll see someone who stops drinking and then they're eating more stuff, or they stop eating and then they're smoking more, or they stop and then their TV habits change, or like we have more than one vice, right?
Now we're adults. I think you're our wellness warrior are in this like probably in the same age range as us. We have those fights, like internal talks, like you often like say like the way we talk to ourselves like is important, but I often even myself like I know I'm fighting with myself, like I shouldn't do that, but that would be good, and to be honest, I often lose. So what do we do about it? Like how do we rebalance? How do we retrain ourselves? I'm not sure. Like how do we when we have this internal talk? Yeah, how do we like? I want to say how my rational minds win a little bit more often than my emotional minds, but even
It's not
maybe
a competition.
it doesn't. Yeah, it's not a competition, but
They
like
work together. They actually work
okay.
together.
Okay, so how
They actually, so that's important for us to understand.
Yeah.
It's not like one part of my mind is good and the other part is bad. They actually work together. I need to first understand what the problem is, which is what emotions do, right? If I'm feeling neutral, then there's nothing good happening, there's nothing bad happening. I'm just like living my life, and most people don't even realize that that's where you are 90% of the time. 90% of your day, there's nothing special happening. You're just living. It's just what it is, right?
Okay.
It's normal. And then we have life happening. And when life happens, then we're in a story now, right? Because when life happens, all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do I feel about this situation that just happened in front of me? Now, if we're lucky, it was a happy situation and we feel great about it. And it's just do, and we go on, right? And hopefully we don't celebrate with food. But, and you see, I'm saying that out loud because I want us to understand something. We do this to ourselves, whether life is hard or not, because we've been taught to do this. We've been taught that food is the answer to everything.
Okay.
That's not true, but it's what we've been taught. So, if something bad happens, we're looking to make the bad stop. That's the actual mistake we're making.
Okay.
So, is because we can't change that the bad thing happened. It's already happened. It's past. It's more about, okay, now that this bad thing has happened, so what's the bad thing? In my case, my hip hurts. I can't stop it. It's already happening. Like my hip hurt. That was my story. I couldn't walk. So how do I feel better? And I could have eaten ice cream. But the problem is that that's what's making my hip hurt. Right? So what you really need to stop and ask yourself is, when I'm self-soothing with this, whatever that you were eating, why was I doing that? Because you're saying like, I could see it, I'm eating, but why am I actually doing that? Because something is happening that you don't like. And it's not always the thing that's happening in this moment. So it gets tricky because it's not because my hip wasn't hurting me right this second because I'm not standing. That means that in my brain, I don't know that I have a hip problem. It's always with me. I don't get to put it down because this second it doesn't hurt. It's always right here, back of my head. Oh, my hip, right?
Okay.
So like you're asking, like, what makes me eat the thing? Because all these negative feelings, even though I'm trying to pretend they're not there, are there. And they direct my self-soothing decisions.
Okay.
Always.
It's interesting because like that's what I was about to add is that like sometimes I'm just like neutral, like you said. I'm just like really like nothing bad, nothing good happens, but like I feel like cashews would be good. Like then this like happens, this fight, and then I go for the cashews. But something like could be bugging me.
Before you said cashews would be good. Before that, chances are very good somewhere in your brain you remembered, oh, my weight, I don't like it.
Okay.
Like this is the thing is that So when we're talking about food and we're talking about health, I'm always saying your body is 24/7 trying to keep homeostasis, keep you healthy, repair things. That's what your body does 24/7. It's looking for opportunities. It's the same thing with your mind. 24/7, your brain wants you to be in a healthy place, in a happy place, in a stable place. Like your brain is constantly looking for, okay, did we solve this? Okay. It's constantly doing that. So even though you're sitting there not thinking hip or not thinking weight, in the background, your brain is like, okay, but we need XYZ because you're hip, right? And then you think, and now I'm thinking, oh, my hip, and sadness, and I want cookies.
Okay.
And it happens like that.
Yeah.
Right?
It does indeed.
But one of the things that, okay, so because we are together a lot, when it happens to you and we're together and we start talking, don't you usually find the thing that you were thinking or that came up for you?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
but
mean,
if I wasn't there for you to say, gosh, I'm feeling like this, and then and I say, well, what's wrong? And you're like, but nothing, but I'm feeling, and then we talk and we talk and we talk, and eventually something comes up, even if it wasn't from today, from yesterday, or right, that, and it was in your head. And it was floating there and it hadn't been solved.
Yeah.
And that's the important part of the puzzle. It hadn't been solved. When you solve something, your brain goes to go click off the list, right?
Okay.
If you don't solve it, it's sitting on the list. And your brain, again, we are about solutions. We are about active doing, fixing. Like that's our body, our brain, that's its goal, right? That's why it won't let it settle. It won't, it won't let it sit.
Okay. Okay. But I want to know, like with you, Wellness Warrior, put it in the comments, like if you have found yourself in that kind of situation, and how do you react? How do you like react to those situations of autopilot that you may have? And like, is it with food? Is it with something else? And if you fixed it, how did you fix it? Like, I'm interested. That being said, like, how do we like fix it? How do we like try to get out of those automatic patterns that we live that are harmful? Because like honestly, we do stuff that we know harm us. How do we rebalance everything, basically?
The hard part about this is that the answer is don't try to fix it. Interestingly.
Okay.
So, because when I hear people say, how do we fix it? Normally they're trying to get me to say something that's like, how do I not feel bad? And that's what gets us into trouble. We don't want to feel bad, but part of it is your brain is giving you negative emotions because you do feel bad. So part one is, I'm not trying to fix it in the sense of I don't want to feel bad. The answer is actually, when I feel bad, understand in my world somewhere something actually went wrong. So what I'm constantly asking us to do is find the real problems in your life and solve them so that your self-soothing with food can fall away, right? Because we're supposed to self-soothe. So let's be careful about this, right? We are supposed to make ourselves feel better. But we used to do it in healthy ways, right? We used to spend time with friends because we know we like that. We used to exercise because we know we like that. We used to do mind teasers and like do things to make our brain expand. We are as smart as we are because of the thousands and millions and billions of people that became before us who used their brains to figure things out because we like that. Like as a race, we humans like to solve problems. And yet today, when something goes wrong, we are telling people to forget about it. Don't sweat that. Put it out of your mind. It's not possible. Your brain won't let you. What we actually need to do is allow ourselves to stop, look at the problem, and solve it. And in order to solve it, I need to feel something.
Okay.
Right? Until I feel something, I don't know what I'm solving. Happy and excited and ecstatic are things that we solve with laughter and enjoyment and fun, right? I need us to understand both sides of this coin are still emotions. Sadness and fear And rejection and loneliness, we also need to solve. We let ourselves solve happy, right? I feel great. I'm going to go see my friend. But then we don't let ourselves solve sad. I feel sad. I'm going to go see my friend.
Okay.
Why? My friend and I will talk, and chances are very good my friend will understand my situation and say something that moves me forward. And if my friend doesn't say something to move me forward because maybe they're not skilled at that, I can see my psychologist. I can see my doctor. I can see my brother. I can see, there's so many people that I could see that might offer me something that says, oh, try that. And we don't do that. We say, I need to shut these feelings down by eat something.
Okay.
I need to shut these feelings down by drink something. All right? I need to shut these feelings down, basically.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is learn not to shut the feelings down.
Feelings down. Okay, that was interesting. Like, so what you just said, like, to me was a number one tip to solve the problem. So let's start to find like 4 more.
Okay.
So the one that I can come up with is try to break those patterns. Like, you have goals, you have health goals, you want to stay on keto, have it like clearly, for example, on your fridge, on your like cupboard, like what your goal visible in sight all the time. Maybe like would be a deterrent maybe to break your autopilot pattern.
Well, I'm hoping more for it to be a reminder because
reminder. Okay.
we do. So just going along with that, we do what we think. So if I have this list on my fridge as a deterrent that says in my brain I don't want to do it, and if I'm telling myself I don't want to do it, I won't do it, so I will eat the thing.
Okay.
So have but if I have this on my fridge because it's what I would like to be doing, if I have this on the fridge to say every day when I leave the house, these are the things I'm doing. I look at it every day. Every time I come into the kitchen, this is what I'm going to be eating. So if I have it like that as a reminder of my good behaviors, because maybe I'm afraid I'm going to forget or something, I don't know, then I will use it as a reminder. And of course, reminders help us to have new habits. Going back to what we were saying before, that we do our habits.
Okay, good segue to tip number 3. Then have a list of things you could be doing instead of eating the food or doing or gaming or whatever.
So it's a list of things that make me happy?
Yeah, of things that, so like if you acknowledge you're either sad, then instead of this, like call a friend. Or if you're bored, then instead of eating, then play drums. It's like,
so I like
have
that.
a possibility. Like,
okay, I like that because you said you broke it down a little further.
Okay.
Going back to what I said earlier, if I'm bored, then I play drums. That's not me distracting myself. It's me doing something to solve boredom. If I'm sad, I call my friend. Why? Because my friend is probably going to help me talk it through and figure out why I'm sad. So it's not just having a list. I thought you were talking about entertainment, but it's not just about having a list for entertainment. It's about having a list of things that I can do that will solve the problem that I'm having. Right? And maybe, for example, if I go for a walk, it's for me to think on the problem so that I can come up with a solution that maybe I will try next time this situation happens, because sometimes we can't always solve the problem right away. Sometimes something happens and maybe I'm like, I didn't know what to say. And I'll go for a walk and I'll think, oh, I could have said this. All right, next time that kind of thing happens, I'm going to try saying that. Right? So I want us to be proactive.
Okay.
Looking for solutions that we can engage.
Interesting. You give me nice segues to other tips. Tip number 4 is journaling, maybe. So if you journal regularly and you acknowledge your emotions and you write them down, then if you're pulled toward the kitchen but you feel neutral, then you can go back to your journal and check what happened maybe the day before or last night or last morning. Is it a good?
I love that, and I love the fact that, because when we're journaling, and it could be in a book, it could be audio, like an audio journal. But the thing that's cool about journaling is that it's when you are writing down your thoughts and ideas, you're thinking about stuff. It puts you in the position to reflect. I took an action, or a thing might have happened. How did I feel about it? So I'm going to add to this that when you journal, it's not strictly this happened today, that happened today. Like, go deeper. This happened today. How did I feel about it? Right? Do I want it to happen again? If I don't want it to happen again, why don't I want it to happen again? Like, what was good about it? What was bad about it? Right? Because I think sometimes what we do, and we do this about ourselves as well, is that we'll be trying to solve something, but we're only trying to look at the good part of it. And we're not letting ourselves look at what's negative about it, right? And so, just in the weight loss front, I'll just put this one out there. How many people that I've met that start a diet but refuse to weigh themselves at the beginning? Which means that you're not really trying to understand what progress you've made because you don't know where you started. Right? So then how can I gauge progress? Then you're going to say, okay, I can tell by my clothes and all this. But there's still an element here of I'm afraid to know where I am, even though I'm there. What am I saying to myself? I'm saying I'm not good enough. These hidden messages that we say to ourselves mess with us because even if I don't say it out loud to the world, it's there. So when I journal, all of that stuff is going to be in my head, right? Because I'm reflecting, why am I feeling this way?
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to tip number 5.
Well, I'm
Okay.
going to piggyback off
Yeah.
of what you said if you want me to come up with one, because I feel like when I'm journaling and I'm thinking and I'm in my head, this is an opportunity for me to learn to be quiet with negative and to let myself understand that feelings, so the sadness is information. And so a lot of us have heard of mindful meditations. And the reason that they're helpful is because we're learning that when I'm still and I could have a pain, for example, and I'm still, I can feel the pain a different way. And there's a lot of people that learn how to manage pain that's not going away quickly by being mindful and still and interacting with the pain in a way that allows it to be information rather than attacking my person, attacking my well-being, right? Because what we need to understand is both mental pain and physical pain is there to give us information. So I'll go to my example. Had I not had the hip pain, I wouldn't have known all the damage that was happening in my body. I had insulin resistance. I had this inflammation problem that I should have known was going to lead to a hip problem. But whatever. I had, I was on the road to diabetes. I had excess weight. I had all these indicators that internally, Violet, something's going wrong. And if I'm still and let myself talk to this internal, right? How much information can I actually gather? Not just about physical, but also emotional. Why do these things bother me? And maybe it's going to go back to my childhood. And I might be able to link things back and go, oh, wow, okay, that's where that's coming from. Maybe it could go back to something that happened at work that I didn't enjoy. Do I let myself have that conversation, right? So being mindful, I think, is something that we all should engage, whether we have a problem or not. It's good to take some time and meditate on life.
Yeah, indeed. And like you told me something, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that like that idea that 2 minutes for like to feel good is a bad trade for all the negative or all the repercussion that 2 minutes of feeling good can have on your health. So
Yeah.
I think this is maybe a good starting point.
Yeah, we do. We trade 2 minutes for like months of weight gain and right for
and
that
pain.
cookie that, does it even take us 2 minutes to eat it? We're trading seconds sometimes for like the pain that we would live. I do remember when I was eating the nuts when I shouldn't have been. Like I was trading, and it took me a while to figure out that it was the nuts for sure, but the pain that I was in for a bowl and like it didn't make sense. And
Yeah.
obviously that's why I changed it. And I'm encouraging you guys to think about like what are you trading, because you don't realize that letting your emotions sit with you, and so it hurts, and that's going to be 15 20 minutes of sadness or anger or fear or loneliness or etc. But that 30 minutes where I really dial in what's bothering me about this situation so I can create a real solution and then execute on this. That's important. It's not just about a solution, it's about executing on the solution, right? Do something different next time.
That was very enlightening, I guess. Like, I hope you guys could learn like a thing or two with that video.
I'm definitely glad we started doing these again. We're going to keep doing them. Not sure how regularly, but we're going to try to do them every once in a while. If you have topics that you want to hear us talk about, put them in the comments and Pat will collect them so we can share this information with you. Thanks for watching Pat Chat. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for watching.